Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angel and today we're doing some more Halloween DIYs. For this project, I grabbed one of these little glass bottles from Dollar Tree, and then I'm also going to be using some of these small little skeletons. I'm actually just going to be using one of them, and luckily these are pretty easy to bend, so I want to shape him to be sitting on the bottom half of the bottle and then hugging the bottle as well. And I ended up just using some hot glue to reattach his head back on so that I could make him facing outward. I wanted to make this bottle into like a spooky potion bottle, so I grabbed some of this Dollar Tree white tissue paper and I'm just tearing off little pieces of it so that we can make this bottle really creepy and kind of aged. So I'm just doing some Mod Podge over a part of the bottle, and I'm going to work in small sections and just start adding this tissue paper all over. The good thing about this is you don't have to worry about wrinkles or anything like that, because that's kind of what you want. You want all that texture on this bottle. So I'm just going to keep working my way down the bottle and do the entire thing. And while that's drying, I'm just going to take some white chalk paint, and I decided to paint my skeleton with that, and I'm just making sure that I'm getting it inside and out. And then once the bottle is dry, I'm going to go over that with some of my white chalk paint as well. Then I used some gel super glue to attach the skeleton to the bottle. Now you can use hot glue if you want, but I find that this Dollar Tree gel super glue, it dries pretty quickly and it holds a lot better. Then I wanted to add a little label to the front of the potion bottle, so I grabbed these little frame molds that I got from Amazon with some of my air dry clay, and I'm going to start by making a little frame for the label. I also got these little Halloween potion bottle label stamps from Amazon, and I'm going to be using this center one that says unfiltered poison. I thought about stamping it directly onto the bottle, but ended up deciding I wanted this brown paper background. So I used my stamp and just stamped it onto some cardstock, cut it down, and then Mod Podged it to the front of the bottle. Then I just used some more gel super glue to attach the frame over that little potion stamp. And to finish it off, I'm just going over the frame and the rest of the bottle, just using the leftover on my little brush here with some of my Rub and Buff. For this project, I picked up one of these little hurricane vases from Dollar Tree, and then I'm grabbing a large clump of my air dry clay, and I'm gonna roll that out into a thin, long piece. You just want it to reach all the way around your bottle. And then I am going to cut some little eye holes in this first little piece, take those little eyes out, and then I'm gonna cut it straight across at the bottom and straight across at the top to fit the hurricane vase, and just wrap it around my vase and pinch the backing and push the backing together so that the clay will stay on here. You won't need any glue for any of this. Then I'm going to grab some more of my air dry clay and again roll this out into skinny long pieces. Once I have that all rolled out, then I'm going to take my little razor and I'm going to cut these down into long strips so that we can make this into a mummy. Now again, these pieces don't need to reach all the way around to the back, so you just want to make them long enough to go around the front and the sides. And then I'm kind of just taking the strips, placing them randomly for this mummy, and then pressing the little pieces into the clay on the back side. Then I just continued to make little strips of clay and cutting those down until I had enough to go all the way around the vase. Now, when I got to the bottom section and wrapping those little pieces around, I didn't have any clay on the backside for them to attach to, so I just grabbed some of my leftover clay, squished a piece down, and then placed that where those two would meet and squished it together. I let this dry overnight, and then the next day I went back in with some of my European Gold Rub and Buff and just went over this entire thing to age up all those bandages. For this project, I grabbed this small little oval frame from the thrift store, and I'm actually going to be using the glass for this project. I first took the glass, traced around it on a piece of paper, and then I just hand drew a little ghost holding a pumpkin on there. Now, I want to turn this into stained glass, so I ended up buying some gallery glass paint from Amazon, and I did attempt to do this a couple times before I realized I didn't like using the black leading that comes with all the little gallery glass paints. So I actually just used one of my black paint markers to do all of the outlining for this. Now, the only thing with that is you do have to be very careful when you're going in with your other paint so that you don't go over the line with the leading. It actually prevents you from going over your line. So here you can see I am just carefully going around the outlines that I did first, and then I will fill in all of that outside. And this color is actually called amber, and it's one of my favorite colors. Like I said, I have tried this a couple times before I actually did this one, and this color is so pretty when it dries down. Now, also another thing is you can see I did the little pumpkin first, and then I'm gonna do the outside of the ghost, and that's just kind of giving this a little bit of time to dry just a little bit so that when I go back in on the ghost, it won't mix in with that orange color. Some other things I learned in my first and second attempt on this is that you really don't need to squeeze these bottles very hard. You want it to be not too thick. I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but these come out pretty quickly from the bottle, so you're just barely gonna squeeze and then use the nozzle to kind of spread it around. Now, once I was finished with that amber color, I did let it dry for about an hour because, like I said, I didn't want the two colors to mix, and then I'm gonna go back in with this white color that is actually the clear color once it dries down. And again, I'm just going to go in and carefully fill in my ghost without letting it get into where that pumpkin is, and just trying to stay inside those outlines to not let it touch. The last thing I forgot to mention is as you're doing this, you will get some little air bubbles in places. Just try to make sure that you just use that nozzle and kind of pop those air bubbles as you're doing this. Then once I was finished, I just let this dry for 24 hours. For this project, I'm just grabbing another thrifted frame. This one, however, didn't have a backing, so I just cut down one from some Dollar Tree foam board. I'm also going to be using two of these Dollar Tree skulls, and as you can see here, for the first one, I just cut off the back side of it, and then for this second one, I split that right down the center. Then I'm going to leave the frame over that poster board for now and kind of arrange and cut down the skulls to the size that I need for them to actually fit down in this frame. Once they were all the right size and everything, then I just used some hot glue to attach them to that foam board. Again, just leaving the frame on here so that I can make sure everything fits nicely. Then I'll just set that frame aside now, and I'm going to take some more of this Dollar Tree tissue paper with some Mod Podge, and I'm going to start working in small sections. I'm going to do the top half first, and then I will put this tissue paper over top of there, just kind of pressing it down, and then use my brush with the leftover Mod Podge, really push this down and get all the details of the skull. And again, just like with the potion bottle, this is another project where you don't have to worry about the wrinkles or creases because you're trying to get that creepy texture on here. So like I said, I'm just working in sections, and once I had that top piece done, then I moved on to that center skull, doing the exact same thing, just Mod Podging it down and then using that brush with the leftover Mod Podge to go back over the skull and everything. And as you may have noticed, this did tear a little bit in some places, but it's completely fine. Once this is dry, I'm actually just going to go back over anywhere where the tissue paper tore or split into, and I'll just add little pieces back over those spots. And once I have everything covered again, then I will set this aside and let it completely dry. Then I just went in with some scissors and cut off all of that excess paper. Now I did take this outside and spray paint it for the first coat just because I found it a lot easier to spray paint this first. But then for the second layer, I'm going in with some of my white chalk paint and just covering it again. Then moving back to the frame, I did want to dress this up a little bit. It was just a little too plain. So I wanted to add this little decorative piece to the top of the frame. So I'm using one of my Amazon molds and some air dry clay. And I just did that little top piece, and then I took this outside and spray painted it gold. Then I came back in and used some of my Rub and Buff just to give that gold some more depth. For this project, I wanted to make a paper mache witch hat, so I am just using some Dollar Tree packing paper for this. I'm also just going to be using my cone I have here that I always reuse for things. And I'm just going to use that to kind of shape a piece of that packing paper. And then I'm going to use masking tape to tape that shape. Then I will just remove it from that cone, and I'm going to start twisting the top part of it so that I can get that little wispy part of the witch hat. Once I have the shape that I wanted, then I'm just going to stuff this with some plastic bags. You can use extra paper or stuffing if you want to. This is going to be removed later, but for now, I'm just using it to keep the shape. Then I'm going to use some more masking tape, and I'm just going to mask this entire thing, front and back, and all the sides, the top, everything, how I want it shaped with this masking tape. And this is just to make it more sturdy. Then I'm going to grab my glue mixture. This is just a mixture of white school glue, a little bit of water, 2 tablespoons of flour, and a teaspoon of salt to help prevent mold. Then I cut down some Dollar Tree packing paper into strips. Now you can definitely just use newspaper or some recycled paper you have, but I already had this on hand, and so I just cut down some strips, and I'm going to start dipping them into that glue mixture and then squeezing them out with my fingers before putting them onto my witch's hat. Now, when I did get to the top, I had to split those pieces in half and make them a little smaller, just so that this would lay nicely at the top part of the hat. Once I had the entire thing covered, then I just sat this outside in the sun for a few hours to let it completely dry. Then I brought it back in and removed all those plastic bags from the center. For the bottom part of the hat, I just cut out a piece of cardboard and I'm going to use some hot glue to attach the top piece to that bottom piece of cardboard. Then I'm kind of just going to do the exact same thing. I am going to go around with some more of that masking tape and I'm putting it up on the top piece and then bringing it down over the bottom piece and wrapping it underneath that cardboard piece. Then I'm going to go back in with a little more masking tape and tape it around that bottom part. Then I can go in and start doing my second layer of paper mache, starting at the bottom and again pushing the top part of it onto the top piece of the hat and then pushing it over the bottom part. Once I have those vertical pieces done and the bottom part all covered, then I'll just continue wrapping my paper mache pieces around the witch hat again, just like I did the first layer. And once that second layer was complete, I just sat this back outside in the sun to dry for a few hours. For the third and final layer, I am just cutting down some Dollar Tree napkins. It doesn't have to be expensive napkins, and actually the cheaper the better, because you're gonna get those nice wrinkles like a cloth witch's hat would have. But I'm just doing the exact same thing, dipping these down into that glue mixture and covering this entire thing. And then for this layer, I ended up letting this dry fully for 2 days just to make sure everything was nice and dry before I painted it. Then I just used my black chalk paint and went over this entire thing with 2 coats. To bring out a lot of those details and those wrinkles, I went back in with some of my European Gold Rub and Buff and just brushed over this entire thing. To dress it up, I grabbed some of my gold velvet ribbon and I just tied a little bow around the bottom part. Then I wanted to add a little hanging spider from the hat, so I'm using some of this gold floral wire from Dollar Tree and this little hanging spider that I got off of Amazon. It actually already had a little hook piece on the bottom, so I was able to wrap that floral wire around that piece, and then I used a sharp little pointy thing to make a little hole at the end of the witch's hat and then just insert it into that hole. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.